Hey everybody, welcome to day 2 of Breakfast with Bob. I'm your host, Bob Babbitt, and we are at beautiful Clash Endurance Miami. Gentleman who finished 3rd and on the podium here at Clash Daytona last year, at Clash Miami last year, and also 4-time Escape from Alcatraz champion, 2016 Olympian, you name it, he has done it. Mr. Ben Kanute joins us. Benny, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again.
Ben, we go back a lot of years, man. It's been fun watching all the transformation. I've been watching all your videos, and I love all the workout stuff you're sharing with people. It used to be back in the day, athletes were so secretive, right? Nobody wanted to share anything, but you're sharing everything you're doing, and your body has changed pretty significantly since you started doing strength work.
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, I think that the whole being very secretive is, I was always a little confused by it, because it's one thing to share what you're doing and share a plan, and it's a whole nother thing to execute it.
Exactly.
So having some transparency is always good, I think, and it's just interesting to see what we do, because it's not always super different than what the average person might do, or it's a lot more simple than you might think. But as far as the strength work goes, I've just started sharing it more because the strength coach I work with, Matt Pendola, has on Instagram, he's Pendola Project, and he's just released like a new strength program for kind of all endurance athletes. But we started working back in late 2020 and going into 2021, just doing very basic stuff to build a foundation. My bike fit completely changed from the adaptations from it, just because I got lengthened out a bit, and so I was all crunched up on the time trial bike. Right. And then all of a sudden I'm able to hold a little bit better aero position, and this wasn't even the goal necessarily of it. And I've always done strength. It was more of like, let's fix, some run form and get some better resiliency there so I could just hold better run form throughout. And we saw that in Miami last year here, where I was finishing stronger, in Texas the race after. So I am always a big proponent of strength, as long as it doesn't take away from the swim, bike, run. Right. And he feels very similarly, and is just, if you know who Bobby McGee is.
Absolutely, one of the best running coaches around.
Yeah, and we always kind of joke he's the running guru. His counterpart is Matt Pendola, and I kind of call him the strength guru, just because he's so knowledgeable in what he does.
But it's interesting, because you're working on the strength, and then you were sort of going a little backwards on the bike.
Yeah, and it was just, so like in the change of the bike fit, I go into my bike fitter at Psychologic Park a few times a year, always. And, I just delayed it a little bit going into 2021 with just how quick the season picked up, coming in off of like a late 2020. And then when we got in, we had one of our longest bike fits, and he's like, you look terrible on the bike right now. Because, I mean, if you're moving, like, you're always kind of adjusting. There's certain tightnesses. Sure. But when you have those strength adaptations, like I was all crunched up and then sitting crooked, and he flattened me out and got everything fixed. And he's like, okay, yeah, you look really good. And then progressed, and that's how it was for the entire year last year. Is we had like 5-minute bike fits where we would check in. He'd be like, I can't do anything right now. This is great. And so at the beginning of this year, had a very quick one. Again, just some minor adjustments again for some strength adaptations probably. But yeah, we're going to go to the wind tunnel too, because that's kind of that next step.
Which wind tunnel you go to?
We're going to go to the A2. No, we would like to go to the San Diego one, but yeah, the A2 wind tunnel is where we're going.
So how do you coordinate that with, so you got a strength coach, you got running guy Bobby McGee, you got Jim Vance, who's been with you forever. How do you coordinate all the different coaches?
Well, Jim is top dog. He's my main coach. Yeah, and Jim has just worked with Bobby because he knows how smart Bobby is on the run, and I leave it to Jim. He's kind of the master plan with everything, gets input from Bobby on what sort of run workouts or form work or anything that might be beneficial. And we kind of take what we know works, we take what Bobby said, and then the strength stuff helps Bobby kind of plan, because Matt can take a look at me too. We do like video sessions, so he can kind of see how I'm moving and coordinate with Bobby, like, oh, well, I think Ben is moving this way, and so that helps with all the planning. But again, those strengths are just kind of inserted into certain days that won't affect hard workouts. So the schedule kind of starts to take shape, where Jim kind of knows which bike workouts and swim workouts. He has an idea of where these runs might fit in, and Bobby just kind of maybe tweaks it a little bit, gives Jim like, hey, we need to be doing this specific work. And yeah, just kind of all kind of like pieces in a puzzle. You just kind of piece it together, and they're really great at keeping it just straightforward, having the program in there and letting me do my thing.
So last year was still sort of an Olympic year. You sort of had hope that, hey, I'll potentially make the mixed relay. So you sort of couldn't go all in on the 70.3 distance and other races because you never knew. Was you need to go to Korea or you need to go here. Is it nice not having that this year where you can just focus on what you want to do?
Definitely. I think having the just freedom and the just knowing that I can pick all of my races this year, not have to do any, politicking or bureaucratic stuff, especially with the way that I tried to qualify for the Olympics, where I wanted to just be a mixed relay athlete. I wasn't chasing points, had to really rely on the system to get me in and out of races. And I think, too, for my entire professional career and junior career, I kind of forced my physiology to be an ITU athlete. Like, I think that my true strength lies in
longer distance.
Yeah, in longer distance. And I don't want to speak for anybody, but I feel like even like Jan dedicated himself to that 2008, where he like forced himself to be in the best ITU shape possible for Beijing.
Right.
But he kind of knew, like, okay,
as soon as it's over.
Yeah, I got my gold medal, and I kind of was looking for a different ending to walk away with a mixed relay medal and everything. But we also tried to balance a couple different things. So having singular focus for the future, I think, is gonna be really good for me.
Well, and obviously it was pretty obvious. It was obvious to a lot of us early on when you went to Chattanooga and got second, to Javier Gomez and led for pretty much that whole 70.3 Worlds. And what was that a little bit of an eye opener for you? Going, okay, I could be great at this distance.
Yeah, and I think I always kind of knew that. It was just playing the waiting game, because I really wanted to develop speed first before moving into the longer distance stuff. And just it's hard to go really long and then go backwards and try and go do the super sprint and sprint stuff. So I had kind of a primary focus to not lose that speed. And now I think that's going to help me, because I'll have some of that leg speed. I have some of that background. And as I continue to add strength and volume, which I think that throughout my career we've just noticed, if I can handle the right amount of volume and then get an intensity around it, I seem to respond really well to it. So I think those signs also kind of point towards middle and long distance racing helping me out, and just kind of knowing that my strengths as well in the swim bike and the way that I race kind of as a diesel engine just really lend itself to this style of racing.
Well, and I think you've been at both Daytonas. This will be your second Miami, right?
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about just the racetrack thing, because Daytona is totally different than Miami in terms of, this is a road course, that's just a speedway course, but you've done well at both those.
Yeah, so obviously, on paper the distances are different. So this one's a little bit shorter, a little bit more loops for the distance that you're doing. So I think this one, whereas Daytona you can have the danger of zoning out, this one keeps you engaged, where you got 2 laps in the swim. Last year we just swam by for the second loop, but I think this year we exit
and come back.
Yeah, you have to kind of stay on top of that. 17 laps, I think, on the bike here. And really, it's not just zoning out and pushing power, because you've got corners. It's similar in the fact that you should probably stay in your aero bars for probably 99, 98% of the course. But then the run too, 7 laps of a mile and a half. Like, I remember just being on the far side and being able to see people ahead of me or behind me, like just that half a lap ahead, because you can take that corner and just see the whole thing. So I love the racing here. I think it'd be, the development of it is cool. You get cool broadcasts, great racing, and you can see the stands behind us. It'd be sweet to fill those up at some point with fans and stuff like that. So I think like the unique setting of this and having everything in one, where you could sit in the stands and see it all, is really cool.
So last year when you came off the bike, I think everybody thought Chris Lieferman was going to be the guy, and then next thing you know, Ben Kanute's come running in 3rd place. Did you surprise yourself, or did it help the fact that you could see him?
Well, the run was kind kind of dynamic that year because I came off the bike in third or fourth, and it was Jan Dietlev and Rudy von Berg who were like right around me or just ahead. And actually, well, T.O. I think was just about to come off the bike, but then he suffered the heart attack and still finished. Like,
that's amazing.
That'll put you backwards a little bit. Most people, I think, would have just stopped.
You think? Yeah.
But I was running for a while, and I kind of knew that, at the time, like Dietlev, and then I could see Rudy, that eventually I'd catch them.
Yeah.
But Lieberman and Lionel Sanders were coming by.
That's right, together.
Lionel was running just about as fast as Jan, which is about 5-minute pace, and I could see that. So on that second loop, I think, they caught me and ran with them for a bit and was just like, I need to run my race because these guys are trying to blow the doors off this race super early. And so, a few guys tried to stay, including Chris, and he did a good job to hold on for as long as he did. But I think between the swim and the bike and then just going out fast on the run, by the fifth lap-ish, I could tell that he had significantly lost time to Lionel. And for me, it was just like I think at fifth or sixth at my worst running, maybe seventh. And I just slowly started picking off the person right in front of me. And each person I passed just kind of gave me that extra motivation. And when you're running in fourth and you could see the guy in third struggling,
that's a good thing.
Like fourth sounds pretty terrible compared to third. So like I just, since I had that momentum, I wanted to finish it off. So
when'd you catch him? How close to the finish?
Oh man, I think we were rounding that final bend or something. It was kind of down to the wire because I think in that, I remember the final shot on the video, like rewatching the race, and you can kind of see I think they expected Chris Lieberman coming around with the camera that caught it, but then you see me kind of coming around. So it was fun. It was good, and it was just kind of back to feeling like myself on the race course and just actually racing and not just, like grinding through and just, surviving a little bit.
Well, and you have a history of big finishes. I remember Island House when you went back to Renzo and just flying. What's the season going to be for you this year now that you don't have to think ITU?
Yeah, so obviously starting with Clash Miami here. Oceanside is next.
Which you love. You won that last year, defending champion.
Yeah. So passed 2 times, so that's great. And I hear there's going to be a great start list there. So
you're 2-time champion there.
I am, 2019.
Oh, I love it. That's right, for 2019, I forget.
I think there's a huge gap here. So it's like the Gustav Eden holding on to the world championship title for extra. I got to hold on.
Right? Yeah, for world championship.
Exactly. So, and after that, I think it's going to be St. Anthony's and the North American champs in Chattanooga. You got Alcatraz, and then the PTO races start coming up. And
there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and it was funny because people I've talked to a couple people, and they're like, how many races you doing this year? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, it's like 8 to 10, like 12 tops. And they're like, oh, that's a lot. And I'm sitting there going like, I remember counting up like in my ITU days,
like 15
to 20. Yeah, I was doing like 15 to 20 races. And granted, those were shorter.
But the travel.
Now,
and people underestimate that. You have to look at the whole race as a package because when you're traveling, going to Yokohama and then going to Dubai and places like that, stuff takes out of you.
Yeah, it takes away from training. It takes it's a stressor in itself. Like it's basically you're at high altitude for a number of hours, and so it's nice to have a lot of domestic racing with a few big trips thrown in there.
Right.
Like hopefully like the Collins Cup and all of that, and I think it's an exciting year for the sport. It's a 3 world championship year. I know some people will be doing 3. I'm doing 1. So we'll you'll
do 70.3 worlds.
Yeah, 70.3 worlds.
What I love is you've been in this sport for a long time, and I think it's at a point now where realistically you don't need to be an Ironman guy. Right? You can make a great living doing, if you were doing in Super League or WTS and 70.3 racing and Clash racing and Challenge racing. There's a lot of variety out there with enough money where you can make a living. Yeah,
there's a lot of exciting opportunities, and I think that it's the hardest part about being like a pure Ironman athlete is that you can only race that 2 or 3 times a year, and then you have to kind of pick and choose your other battles. And so being able to do the middle distance is great. You can kind of jump up and down.
Right.
I think the long course stuff is interesting and will be interesting to try it out. But I think that right now, like you were saying, there's a lot of good opportunities in the sport of triathlon. And I think that, I hope they all stick, but we'll kind of see because it's definitely an exciting time.
What I've seen over this last couple of years, and really starting with Lionel, with Talbot Cox, is it used to be if you were a surfer and you didn't have somebody capturing your photos or video, it didn't exist, right? And you needed to have that guy there to show the world what you're doing. And now more and more of our athletes have their own, their own personal videographer, so that one, you're sharing what you're doing, you're sharing your training, etc. But also, besides sharing that, you're giving people a backstage look at who Ben Kanute is a person. How important is that, do you think?
Yeah, well, I think that it's interesting, important. It's a whole lot of things because we get to share the race course with all the age groupers,
which is very unique in sport.
You don't usually get to rub shoulders like the NFL players. If you get sideline seats, you can maybe get them in passing. But I think that people are interested in just how we live, how we do things, and I just am trying to provide that. And I don't really think that I'm necessarily exceptional. I don't some guys will throw up 7-8 hour training days, and they do these huge epic things to attract people into watching, but it's that consistent hard work that I've done and the balance that I've found in my life, and then trying to get all the little details right that I think kind of make things interesting. And I got asked a question what do you think the difference is, being a professional or not, or being a champion, even just for a normal professional. And I thought that was a pretty interesting question, because I think some people might think it's having you have to go out and work way harder than everybody else. But every professional out here is working super hard. We all have smart coaches. There's a lot that's very similar, but I think it's that attention to detail and then the passion that you have for the sport on top of that really helps you excel and figure out kind of what it takes to win. So I think it's interesting. I have someone following me around, and I think we've got some cool stuff planned. I have a video hopefully coming up soon with talking about the strength work that we've done,
which is really cool.
Yeah, we're planning on taking them to the wind tunnel to just kind of show my process on bike fitting. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into the sport besides swim, bike, run, and stuff outside the sport too that allows me to perform, at my best.
Yes.
And that's hopefully what we try and capture, and just kind of hopefully people enjoy watching it and kind of tagging along and, kind of seeing what we do.
What do you look at when you look at it's been a long career now. You've been doing this since you were a little kid.
20 years, I think.
20 years!
I think, I'm 29. I started 8 or 9. And 20 years. So.
What do you look at as your best race?
That's such a hard one. I could pick so many of them. Yeah. Recently, I would say Oceanside was last year was a really great one, along with the Collins Cup.
Yes,
I feel like I really nailed my processes there. And then I can just pick some out. I think some really fun ones were Island House, you talked about.
So cool.
Chattanooga was up there. I've had a number of one of the more a couple WTS races here and there, the one up the Kitzbühel climb. That was my first one. But I think maybe a more obscure one was the Super League, where in Jersey they had to cancel the bike for the men because it was too windy, barriers were flying over, and I had some rib issues, but it was swim running, and I ended up 4th in that one. It just kept getting stronger throughout. So there's a lot of I think cool solid races for me over the years, and it's been a lot of fun. So hoping 2022 it's just each one keeps getting better
and better and better. It's funny when you mentioned the whole thing with training and people following it. I remember years ago they used to have this multi-sport camp, and Paula Newby-Fraser is working with this multi-sport camp, people training for Ironman.
Yeah.
And they'd have them write down what their training was. Invariably, Paula would look at it and go, this person's doing way more than I do.
Yeah.
Right? I'm winning Ironman.
Yeah.
They have a family, they have a job, and they're doing 30 hours of training a week.
Yeah. And that's the interesting thing too. I mean, I look at some pros and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I did that training load, I'd burn out. I've tried to do it and I have almost burnt out.
Right.
And some people get by with, significantly less hours than me, and they just have that kind of balance where that works for them. And I don't, to use a cliche, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So
Absolutely.
you can be, the best in the world, and you don't have to, do 150-mile rides, and it's not necessarily saying that you have to be the most talented and only train like 15 hours a week.
Yes.
There's a way for, I think, a lot of people to be there. So that's what I think makes it interesting. It's what makes sport interesting too, is you never really know what's going to happen. It's unpredictable, and on any given day. So.
And what are your goals here?
I mean, whenever I step on the start line, I want to win.
Of course, yeah.
So, but also, I always come into the first race of the season too. Like we've gotten in 4 to 5 weeks of really good prep.
Yeah.
But I think kind of early on in the year, we just, had some delays like COVID and that sort of thing, just slower start to training for the season. But yeah, I mean, I'm feeling good. My workouts have been great. And this is like a solid starting point to get a checkpoint on the season, see where I'm at, and try and beat these guys.
So I'll always know that your daughter is, every time we come to a race, I go, okay, it's a year since Daytona, so she's about a year.
Yeah.
It's a year and a half since Miami, so she's about a year and a half. How is she getting to the point where she sort of knows what daddy does?
A little bit. I mean, Courtney brought her to the pool the other day, and it was really funny. She's trying to look. I think she had no idea. She's like, why are all these people in this really big bathtub? Like, she loves baths, so we're getting her in swim lessons. I think she's going to love swimming. I think she kind of understands it, but also she just is all over the place. She's bouncing off the walls, walking, pretty much running now, it seems like. So she's making me do some extra miles in the day, chasing her around. And yeah, it's just been so fun to have her along on the journey.
Well, what's great about that is, I remember years ago, I think it was Crowe who was telling me in Kona, he said, listen, the great thing is you come back from a workout, they don't care.
Yeah.
You had a bad race, you had a bad workout, they just want to play.
Yep.
And that makes it so much more fun.
Yeah. For sure, it is. It's a ton of fun to watch her grow up and just be a part of it. It puts a whole new perspective on life too.
Love it, Benny. Always such a pleasure to catch up, and we'll see you in Oceanside for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And good luck this weekend.
Thank you very much.
Ben Kanute has been our guest. Everybody, again, Breakfast with Bob. My name is Bob Babbitt. Thanks for tuning in, and hold on, we'll be right back.